Welcome to our collaboration and workflow best practice session. You'll see our mandatory legal disclaimer on your screen now. Hi, my name is Kathy Sparks and I'm a Customer Success Manager based in Sydney. My role is to help customers leverage Smartsheet to achieve their business goals by understanding their business initiatives and priorities. I'm here to make sure that they have support, resources and guidance needed to make their work more efficient, scalable and provide best practice. Today we're looking forward to a fantastic session with Cara Robinson from RMIT University. I've had the pleasure of working with Cara over the past few months and witnessing firsthand all of the great initiatives she's been leading using Smartsheet to deliver greater transparency and success within RMIT, which she's going to take us through today. Cara has worked at RMIT for 3 years and in the Australian university sector for off and on for the last 15 years. After a 4-year stint in London working in RMIT in communications for the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade at the Australian High Commission, Cara returned to Melbourne in 2017 to pursue a career in project management and operational organisation at RMIT. While a relative newbie to Smartsheet, Cara is a long-time die-hard nerd when it comes to spreadsheets and formulas and finding the right solution for how to solve operational issues through data and teamwork. I remember meeting Cara for the first time and was very impressed by what she'd built in a matter of days. Cara, thanks so much for being part of our event today. We're delighted to have you with us. Let's move right on into it. Over to you, Cara.
Thanks very much, Kathy. And thank you for inviting me to talk today to share a bit about what I've learned since we started using Smartsheet earlier this year and how we use it to optimise how our team operates. So I'm part of a strategy planning and delivery team in RMIT Studios. And Studios looks after projects and we offer services that focus on how students learn as opposed to what students learn. And I've spent approximately the last 12 months working as part of a team designing a new operating model for our department. And I've helped lead the implementation of the change process moving into this new model of working. So in early 2020, our team was restructured and we moved from a very static waterfall operating model with no structured project management in our team. And instead we moved to adopt and implement a new scaled agile methodology for all of our project management, as well as our service delivery across the whole department. So my colleagues and I had to look at options to support this new way of working. And there were already some solutions across the university that we had access to, but they didn't necessarily suit our needs. We needed a solution that suited multiple new ideas for us, from a front door and triage-like service with request forms that could feed into project service tools and dashboards for management to view daily, with live data to work both to look at our live data that we work with, as well as our resources, which were our staff. And we also needed something that would allow to be scalable. So depending on the circumstances and the situation that we were in, maybe the time of year, the resources that were available, or for unknown events happening, perhaps like a global pandemic like we're in the situation now. But just for those unknown events that could happen, we needed something that was flexible enough to help us in those situations. So during our very early design workshops, a colleague of mine suggested Smartsheet as an option. Shout out to Ilka here. And we found it would allow us to do most of what we needed just in one place. We wanted a tool that would allow us to design everything from the ground up without some of the limitations that the current project management options available at RMIT had. We accepted that no tool was ever going to be perfect, and we needed to make compromises here and there. And there are always limitations from what you expect and what you desire to what you can actually achieve in the end. And in terms of a tool to capture all of our project and service requests, our timelines, our roadmaps, and feed all of that live data into dashboards, Smartsheet really enabled us to do that. And one of the most important things we needed was to be able to link all of our data from our service and project delivery through the requests and approvals to tracking, reporting, and final delivery, and allow all of our staff, both internal and external to our team, to access that information. We needed a tool that would cater for 80 plus staff as well as externals, and one that could handle all of our projects. And we predicted at the start of the year that that could be in excess of 90 projects this year. So we had two areas that we were looking at. We had our requests and our delivery side. And our requests were capturing everything from projects and services through forms that would allow anyone in the university to submit a request. And that allowed in the background to have automation processes. So someone would request a service or a project, and then it would automatically send for approval to their boss or someone else in the university, and we would receive that request back once it had been automated. And I'll just show you what our project request form looks like. So it's a very simple form. It just has submission dates and request details, and then it goes down into the project details. And all of this is captured in the back end. And down the bottom here, you can see we've got a business and financial sponsor. So as soon as someone submits this form, it sends an email to the sponsor, and they have a request to either reject the request or to approve it. And once that approval comes through, it comes back to us, and we can see that the project has been progressed. So once we've got that, and we needed to have a very sort of a huge back end that allowed for a lot of data from all over the university, and we needed that tool, which Smartsheet was, that allowed us to function through lots of levels of governance and approvals. And all the data needed to be captured in dashboards. And I'll talk about dashboards more in a minute. So from once a project is approved, we move into the delivery phase. And we had multiple sheets that captured all of the information here, from roadmaps and project plans through to dashboards. And I'll show you our major roadmap. So this is a very pared down version of what we use, but basically we captured all of our information in one place, and we have these grey areas up here, which are our overarching groups of work. And underneath each of those, we have programs of work for each area. So that's each of these coloured areas. And then under each of those programs of work, we have individual project plans. And each project plan is linked back to the dashboard with live data. So you can see all of these blue and black triangles here. That is showing that there's a lot of live data that's updating to this sheet all the time. So we had templates created in the background, and everything would just map to one place, and it was really easy for us to use. So the roadmap was really our major area that our leadership team were looking at all the time. That was how they would see how projects and how groups of work were actually functioning throughout the year. And I'll show you one of our project plans. So our project plan just looks like, it's a fairly standard plan, and we can have the Gantt chart as well if we wanted it. but it shows all the project tasks that we've got, who looks after a task, what the time allocated to that task is, what status the task has. We also aligned a lot of our sprints to other projects within the university, so the flexibility of that was really beneficial for us. Having a start and end date and a duration, and also how progressed that project or that task was. And of course, there's just comments based on each task as well. So this was a very sort of basic project plan that we've got. And all of that data is linked through this one row, row 13, and that all of that data is live back into the roadmap. So as well as those kind of high level and detailed sheets in Smartsheet, we also needed to have a dashboard, but the main thing we used was a welcome portal. So it allowed us to have one place where our staff could access everything. So we basically had a bookmark that would take everyone to wherever they needed to in our workspace in Smartsheet. And our welcome portal had all of the quick links down here for everything that we would really need. The roadmap dashboard, which I'll show you in a second, a resource view, our service delivery folders, and our project plan folders. So this was really where all of our project plans were sat. And then down the bottom, we also linked directly to our project request form, because it allowed us to have it in one place rather than always having to find that one link to request something that we're potentially going to request fairly regularly. But it's not just about capturing the data, it's also about reporting on the data as well. And we needed the ability to connect multiple sheets to one dashboard, or potentially multiple dashboards, depending on what our leadership team needed. And behind those dashboards were matrix sheets, which Smartsheet allows us to manipulate the data. So everything in the roadmap or the dashboard is really clean and always up to date. So we had our roadmap dashboard, and I'll just refresh this because it always looks really nice and swishy when it first comes on screen. So this was a sheet that our leadership team and our executives could use on a daily basis just to get a snapshot of where everything was sitting. So how many project requests were coming in, how many projects were in flight at that moment, what the health of those projects were, the phase that they were in, their status, as well as their delivery quarter. And we had, as things progress, you tend to push some things back, and there were more things that were going to be delivered at the end of the year. And we can also see down here our project owners as well as our project managers. And it's a good way of seeing if someone has been over allocated. So you can see that this person has got 15 projects that they manage, but this person has only got one. So it might be something that the executive team or the leadership team needed to discuss to see if there was a reallocation of responsibilities. As well as the roadmap dashboard, we also had a resource view, and we needed to track all of our staff capacity in one place. And Smartsheet has that ability, but we came up with a limitation at that point. We ideally needed to have about 25 people in our team of 85 that would need access to a high-level resource view. that could tell them at any moment what their staff members were doing and how over-allocated or under-allocated they were at any one time. And while Smartsheet has that ability, due to, unfortunately, budgets this year, and there are lots of different times that has happened with a lot of companies, I'm sure with COVID, we just didn't have that allocation of budget that we could for just one thing, which was that resource view. We didn't have the ability to have 25 licenses just for the resource view. So it was just not a feasible option for us. So I designed a solution by exporting data from the Smartsheet resource view and then importing it back straight back into Smartsheet, back into a straight sheet. And that would be updated regularly along with all the formulas and the information that came from all of the projects. So I'll show you our MacGyvered resource view. So this just allows us to see, it looks very similar to the resource view in Smartsheet, but it's just a bit more of a static snapshot, and we can update it at any time, and it just takes about 5 or 10 minutes. And you can see for me, I'm working on a project delivery model for the project and a staff and student survey, and I also have some leave coming up. So this just captures an overall percentage of the next week of how allocated or under-allocated someone is, and you can see every single person within this area. But I can also say over-allocate someone, and you can see that all of a sudden Frank has gone up to 101%. So it shows when there's someone who needs to be supported in some way. So we were able to, with that MacGyvered or with that created resource view, we were able to achieve close enough results for what our leadership team actually needed. And it was really just about finding those things that worked for us and finding the best way of getting around potential limitations. So I'll just take you through some tips and tricks and just finish with these help methods, the go-to help methods that I found that I always used. And I apologise now, but as Kathy said, I am a formula nerd, and formula nerds unite here, absolutely. So I love finding those solutions, and Smartsheet has as you can see down here, a Smartsheet formula examples, and I will take you there because I love it. And it's just this sheet, and you can find it in the community in Smartsheet, and there's a link to it later on. So this just has all of the Smartsheet formulas in one place, and I come here regularly just to find something that I need, and I put it together with other formulas, and I rework something and put it back into Smartsheet and hope for the best. And if it doesn't work, you go back in and you rework it and find something that does. And I find that good fun. Another thing that's really helpful was the Smartsheet community. And there are thousands of people there and hundreds of thousands of pages that you can access at any one time. If whatever problem you've got, you go into Google, type Smartsheet and the problem, and something will come up. Someone will have had that problem before. The other thing that we found really useful was accessing the Smartsheet consultants. So we purchased 10 hours of support, and we worked through multiple different things that were causing us issues at any one time. And you never know what's going to come up. Like for one particular example, I remember we had our consultant just said one sort of offhanded comment, oh, that would help this. And we got to the end of the conversation, and I said to my colleague, like, that one formula, that one tiny thing she said has helped about 6 or 7 different problems we've got at the moment. And it wasn't a big thing, but it just allowed us to do a few things that we hadn't thought were possible previously. And it was just great to be able to pull in those different sheets and use the same formula throughout the sheets. And it solved a whole bunch of problems for us. The other thing is playing to your staff's strengths and what they actually, what they can do and what they find hard or what they gravitate towards. So we needed something to allow that flexibility with our staff, because some people like Kanban boards and some people like lists, some people like colours. So Smartsheet has enabled us to put all of that in one place, and you can, in one project plan, we can have a Kanban board, or we can have a Gantt chart, or just the list of all the tasks. So you can really play to each of your staff's strengths. And the last thing I'd say is connect to your colleagues for what works and doesn't work. So listen in meetings for things that people say and talk to them about what they think would be a good solution, not just for their team, but what would be useful for everyone in your department. And overall, we've found Smartsheet has been, there have been a lot of different things that we've been able to use, just one or two things, and they've helped us solve a lot of different problems from the request side all the way through to the delivery and the dashboard side. And that's pretty much me. You're welcome to connect with me on there, but I will hand you back over to Kathy.
Thanks, Cara. That was really interesting. In particular, I was really impressed how you've been able to adapt Smartsheet to suit your resourcing requirements. In lieu of having the budget to roll out your 10,000 feet solution, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah,
it's always great. It's also great how you've been able to really leverage our Smartsheet community. I think there's something like 37,000 members in our community. There's really a ton of valuable information there to help solve any problem. And for those of you who haven't reached out to it, I really encourage you to do so. But, Cara, I've got some questions for you. So,
fire away.
Was it relatively easy to build out what you needed? And how long do you think it took the process end to end?
Yeah, I mean, we found it fairly easy. Myself and I was sort of working in a group of about 5 of us, and we really found it that everything we really needed to do was possible. And for the most part, they would say, oh, we need X, and it would take me a day or two to come up with a solution, talking with my colleagues about exactly what they needed. And everything would go back and forward, and eventually it would take sort of weeks to find that one answer. But in terms of creating the base structure, it really only took us a day or two to get something that we could work with.
Okay, yeah. And since you've rolled it out, what's it been like socialising and adapting the tool with others in your team?
Yeah, so I've run a lot of training sessions with our staff, from the higher ups all the way down to the people who would be using Smartsheet on a day-to-day basis, so our project managers. And it's been really good. We've had some people, like I said before, some people that really like the Kanban board side of things, and some people who just want the list. They don't want any fancy stuff. They just want to know all of the data and what is happening. So having that flexibility to show our staff what they could do was really, really good, and has been taken up really easily by most of our staff. We haven't socialised it to everyone yet, but for everyone who has used it, they've been really, really pleased with what they can get out of it.
That's great. And lastly, and I shouldn't ask, but I'm going to, when it comes to Smartsheet, what would be on your wish list?
Oh, Well, I've spoken to you about this before, I know, Kathy. I've got this this wall of Post-it notes up here and things that I want sometimes, and other times I just like, oh no, we don't need that. And sometimes Smartsheet will have a solution that's just come up, and I was like, I'll say to my colleagues, I'm like, oh my God, that thing has worked. Like, they've changed this thing and it's brilliant. There's something to do with forms recently that all of my colleagues sort of laughed at me when I was just like, oh my God, they've changed it. But there's not a lot, but there are a few things, probably the breadcrumbs on the home page workspace. That would be something that I would really like. And obviously living in Australia, some of the US dates and the Australian dates, but that's something that you can work around, and it just depends on each person's setting. So yeah, there are a few little bits here and there that I'd love to get in there and request for some changes. But for the most part, it's been a really easy and really user-friendly kind of tool to use, which is what you want, really.
Yeah. And golly, we all love those US dates, don't we, down here?
Oh, yes.
Anyway, thanks again, Cara. That's all we've got time for today. On behalf of Smartsheet, I'd like to say a big thank you to you for taking time out to be part of our event today and providing that insight. I'm sure everyone turned up to this session has taken something away. A reminder to check out A reminder to check out our Learning Centre if you haven't already, where you can find more information on formulas that Cara loves, and even more, you can learn how to become a formula whiz. And we also need to encourage you to interact with our learning community. As we said, 37,000+ members are there, and even think about becoming Smartsheet certified. So we have our online certification. Always recommend that to all customers to complete that. And thanks again. Well, that brings us to an end of our session. Next on our agenda is the chance to watch a 15-minute demo of your choice, which you can select from the sessions area. There are 8 to choose from, and then after that, you'll see for our closing segment, which you won't want to miss, including all of our product announcements. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the event.